This meeting is about the nature and source of competitive advantage. So the first thing that we want to know when we talk about competitive advantage, that nature and source of competitive advantage, is, do we actually have competitive advantage? And how can we tell? How do we know if we have competitive advantage? The way that we know is that we have greater than average profit for the industry. How can we have greater than average profit? We can have it by having higher prices, charging a higher price for our individual good than do our competitors, or we can have lower costs than our competitors, or both. So what are some sources of competitive advantage? Our competitive advantage comes from two sources. They're external sources, or two primary sources, I should say. External sources and internal sources. So what are those external sources? Those external sources are our customer requirements. What do our customers need and want from our product? And if we can deliver those needs and wants, then our product will be poised for competitive advantage. And as well, we are looking for imperfections in competition. What does that mean? It means that not everyone is on an equal playing field. We can use that economies of scale. We can use intellectual property. We can use our supply. If we've got supply locked up, we can use our network effects for our platforms. We can use innovation. We can use brand loyalty. We can use the shortcomings of our competitors with regard to their service, with regard to the value proposition that they offer. What is the value that they offer to the customer with regard to that price? We do not have to be the lowest price, but we need to do what? We need to offer greater value than does our competitor. How do we do that? We need to know who our customer, who our target customer is. So those are the external sources of competitive advantage. Internal sources of competitive advantage are the resources and capabilities of our firm. They are the value chain of our firm. So our firm, when we look at competitive advantage, which we just discussed, really innovation is an internal source. It's not an external source. What else? When we have intellectual property, that is an internal source of competitive advantage. Proprietary information is an internal source. We can say as well that scale can be an internal source. It can as well be an external source if we are using that scale as an imperfection in competition, in that our competitors actually have too great a scale. And by that, I mean, maybe they have excess capacity and they are having to charge lower. They need to use up that excess capacity. They're charging a lower price for what they're getting, but just because you charge so that people will buy, but just because you charge a lower price does not mean that you get what? That goose with the golden egg. It does not mean that you get that profit. Don't forget that profit is the name of the game. That is what we're trying to get, not the lowest price. So we may charge a higher price, but be able to still be more competitive. And so what would charging that higher price be? Would be from a differentiation perspective, that we are not offering a no frills product. We are offering a very nuanced product that does appeal to the customer, and therefore the customer will pay more money for those extra abilities, capabilities, for those extra nuances. What does Magretta say is the key to a firm's competitive success? She says, we need to do what? We need to create unique value. So what does unique value do? Unique value actually allows you to almost be a monopoly. If you are the only one who is providing that particular type of service or that particular product, and when we talk about a particular type of product, this time the product being bundled with all of the various services and needs, requirements of the consumer, that our competitor may have one similar, but again, our product is providing much more of those needs, is a much more nuanced product. And so therefore we become more of a monopoly because we are indeed providing that unique value. The other thing that McGreta says is that creating value is the heart of competition. It is not necessarily beating your rivals. Beating your rivals is a result. Creating the value is what allows us to beat our rivals. So creating value, unique value, is that heart of competition. She also says that how you think about competition and what you think about competition determines the choices that you make. So it determines how you compete. You do not have to annihilate your competition to win in the marketplace, because there are so many different needs there. You can, what you want to do is to create basically a niche product that appeals to as many people as possible, but you create that niche product that is that unique value, that does allow you to become a monopoly, that does allow you to charge a higher price for that fully differentiated good, and therefore you can win in the marketplace. Also, she says that our fallacy is thinking that we need to be the best. Be the best, be the best, be the best. Everybody wants to be the best. Well, according to McGreta, there really is no best. So there's no best car, there's no best phone, there's no best museum, there's no best hotel. There is, in general terms, for your particular target market, for your particular customer, where you can best meet the needs and desires for a particular product in that market, then yes, you can have the best car for that particular market. Not that it's the best car, but it is the one that is meeting the needs better than the competitor's product. So again, this idea of being the best is not what we should think about. What we should think about is, who is our customer? Who is that target customer? Do we want all customers? No. Do we want most of the customers? No, we really don't. We want a smaller group that are really interested in our product, want our product, and are willing to pay good money for our product, pay a higher price for our product, because we are delivering greater service. So our value proposition is higher. So that is what we are looking for. And then because we have that, our product becomes the best for that particular target market. So what is it that we need to do? We need to compete to provide unique value. And how do we do that? We have to know exactly what our customer values, what our customer wants, and we deliver that value. So part of delivering that value is understanding what are the key success factors in the market. And so what are key success factors? Those are those required activities that must be performed. Notice it must be performed at a specific time. So we've got that sequence of events that must take place. And so those required activities that provide the value. Remember, it is all about the value that the customer needs now, but as well anticipating the value that the customer will need in the future at that acceptable price. So that is our value proposition. And so what does that do for us? Then that increases our profits. So the short question is, what do we have to do correctly so that we can earn that sale? And what are the sequences for us to perform those? One of the issues that companies face is imitation. They say that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. That may be true. However, when we are talking about products, what do we not want? We do not want our product to be imitated by another company. If we are making money, then our products are going to be imitated. It's as easy as that. The one that makes the most money is going, that is the one that is going to be viewed by the other competitors in the marketplace. And then those competitors are going to try to imitate the product, the process, the model, so that competitor can get some of that money. So how do we limit that imitation? One of the ways to limit is, frankly, not to publish financial statements. So if you're a private firm, you don't have to publish your financial statements. If you're a public firm, then you do. But if you're not a public firm, don't issue. Limit pricing. What is limit pricing? Limit pricing is thinking of what is that price, your sales price of your unit. What is that price that above that price you believe will attract others into the market? So if you're selling a good for $500 an item, then that may attract a lot of competitors. But if that particular price you think is $400 an item, that will be your balancing there, due to the other capital requirements, due to supply requirements, due to distribution requirements, due to economies of scale requirements. If you think $400 is that average, is that tipping point, you want to sell your good for $390. That way you have deterred, you're still making a profit. You're not making a huge windfall, but you're making a very good profit, but you have deterred your competitors from coming in because they will have to charge a higher price to scale up and compete with you. Deterrence. So deterrence is similar to signaling in that when you if there is someone who does come in and competes with you, and for some reason, maybe it appears that they have copied part of your process and it's patented process, you sue them. You sue them. You let them know that you will not allow for that and that you are vigilant about what copiers do, other companies coming in, and especially, hopefully, it's a small startup, and you sue them so that and you drag it out as long as possible so that you can take their money. So that's deterrence. So signaling, what is signaling? Signaling is, let's say that you are going to have a new product suite, and that product suite might not be coming out until next year or the year after, but you think it's going to be a game changer. You think it's going to be huge for your company. So what do? You start talking with the papers. You talk with the trade pubs. You go on the radio. You start advertising regularly, that you are going to have X product, and X product is going to do this and provide this service and this service and this service and this service. And now here we are, and we're building our warehouses now because we are going to be needing those parts. We are building our factory. We are investing our money into such and such. We are using robotics, whatever it is. So what is it that you're doing? You are letting the rest of the competitors know that you're going after this particular suite of products in a big way, and that you are generating that interest, but as well, you are letting your competitors know that you mean business. So that's part of the commitment as well. You have made that commitment, that investment to produce that product in the next year or two. And so that lets everyone else know that you mean business. And as well, if there starts to be anyone to come in, then again, if possible, sue them. The last one there is causal ambiguity. You don't want to let your processes be known if possible. You want to have so many different things that are going on. You don't want your value chain, all of your specifics to be known. And so the more you can keep that a secret, or the better off you will be. As well, when we look at the market, we think of industry average rate of return. So what is the market giving there? What is the profit there? How does that industry profit, general industry profit, get determined? Well, it's part of Porter's 5 forces. And so those forces do what? They drive that industry profitability. So if the bargaining power of the buyers is high, what does that mean? It means that you as a seller, it means you have to be very careful about your price, because the buyers are much more price sensitive. They can band together if they want, and you cannot sell your good for the price that you want. If the bargaining power of suppliers is high, then your relative power is lower, because you are dependent upon that supplier. And so therefore you will spend more money for the good than what you may have spent, which does what? It depresses those forces there from Porter help to determine how profitable it is for the company that is in the middle, that is making those goods. Who has the power? Do you have to worry about new entrants coming in all the time? If you do, therefore, you've got to have a lower cost of your good. Remember when we talked about our deterrence, instead of selling it for $500, you sell your good for $390. So that's $110 per good right there, that again, you are shrinking that profitability in the industry. So what explains the particular company's position? That's your value chain, because your value chain those are the sequence of events that take place. That is where you are able to, one, to affect what is the price for that particular activity. So you look at that price, those are called your cost drivers, but it as well allows you to look at price drivers, which are what the consumer values. What does the consumer want? So when you review your value chain, you want to do two things. You want to lower the cost as much as possible. So look at those cost drivers, but you want to increase the price drivers as much as possible for each one of those links, so that you are bringing greater value to the customer at every step of the process. And then as well, how is profit a firm's profit affected its industry structure, and then as well their position in the industry, which is relative cost versus relative price. What are two strategies there for a 15% advantage over competitors? One is that you have 20% higher costs, so you're a differentiator, but you charge 35% higher price. So that's your 15% right there. And you can only do that if you are a differentiator and customers are willing to pay that premium to get your product. If Apple were to sell their computers and their watches and their phones at a low price, what does that do to the appeal? Part of the appeal of the Apple is that it is an expensive product. It is a premier product. And, oh, I've got the new Apple iPhone. So the other one is from a cost perspective, being a cost leader, that you have 20% lower cost. However, you don't charge that 20% lower cost, you charge that 5% lower cost. And so there is your 15% as well. So our next question is, how can we actually add additional competitive value from our resources, using our resources? So we have to ask ourselves two things. How can we use fewer resources to support the same level of business? Therefore, our unit cost is lower. Or how can we use existing resources to do what? To have a larger volume of business, again, depressing our unit cost. Here we see the character connection thrive chain, where the universal character strengths in people create the connection culture, which meets the universal human needs that help people and organizations to thrive. So when we think of organizations thriving, that's when we think of our competitive advantage as well. So what is that? Employee engagement is a competitive advantage. Innovation is a competitive advantage. Productivity, customer satisfaction, employee retention, safety is a competitive advantage. How do we get there? Well, it starts back with those universal character strengths in people that are what? The purpose, the hope, the optimism, enthusiasm, appreciation of beauty and excellence, that work to create that connection culture, our vision, our inspiring identity, our value, that human value, and our voice. What is our knowledge flow? Meeting our human needs. What are those needs? Respect, recognition, belonging, autonomy, personal growth. So that helps us to grow as individuals, but helping us to grow as individuals does what? Makes our companies grow and thrive, and that thriving, that growth becomes part of our competitive advantage, and even more so becomes part of our sustainable competitive advantage. And then finally, our last slide is this, which I really, really love. It's why putting revenue before cost is the competitive advantage. Notice that the focus is not on the cost. Cost is important. Cost is definitely important. Where is the focus? The focus is on the revenue. You have to have that revenue so that then you can work back down. If you don't have any revenue, you can have the lowest cost in the world and you still are not profitable. So the focus is actually on the revenue. And this was a book called In the Three Rules: How Exceptional Companies Think. It was written by a director of Deloitte, And here are the 3 rules, which again, I love. The first rule is better before cheaper. So we should do what? We should compete on differentiators, differentiating our product. We should not compete on price. The second rule is revenue before cost. So we can do what? We can drive that superior profitability with those higher prices or those higher volumes. We do not drive our profitability based upon costs. And then number 3, what is the third rule? There are no other rules. So you either you compete via differentiation, and then you drive that profitability again with higher prices. You do not drive it with a lower cost. So according to these directors at Deloitte, what is important? It is differentiation. It is not cost leadership. Cost leadership is important, but differentiation is the key, the differentiator for your product and your sustainable competitive advantage.